What do you think about the climate argument for extinction? Do you think that's too much of a broad term, or do you think it is?
Certainly, what's been possibly underestimated is how much the loss of megafauna will impact changes in climate as well. So when things like mammoths, woolly rhinos, ground sloths, when these things go extinct, then you're losing the ecosystem services they're providing. We know that from the example of things like Pleistocene Park and the change of the mammoth steppe grassland to tundra, that if you don't have these large mammals, then that changes how the flora develop. That changes how the ground itself behaves. And so I think that certainly an overlooked part of the answer is that the climate changes because the animals go extinct rather than the animals go extinct because of climate change. Certainly there is climate changing at the time as well. We have this sort of swing from glacial conditions to interglacial conditions, but that's happened many times over, and the species that we lose at the Pleistocene transition have come through those with no problem. The only major difference, as far as I can see, is that humans are around this time, and that's why they don't make it.
Yeah. And this is, again, this is just a kind of opinionated question for you, but what percentage is it humans and what percentage is climate change caused by them being extinct in terms of a ratio?
I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it's going to be 80 or 90% human caused, 10% climate. The climate is not going to help because that sort of change, that rapid change from glacial conditions is going to stress the populations. But they've come out of that stress before. I think it's just having humans around that with their hunting, with their habitat changing ways, that's just what's tipping them over the edge. And that doesn't take much.
Yeah. And speaking of Neanderthals and other Homo species, were we able to interbreed with them successfully?
So that's been one of the big findings from the whole field of ancient DNA has been looking at Neanderthal genomes and modern humans as well. The first Neanderthal DNA was published in 1997, looking at the mitochondria, which is just the maternal lineage of DNA, showed complete disjunction between Neanderthal and modern humans. So that suggested that there'd been a replacement event, that modern humans had come in and completely replaced Neanderthals. But later on, when the nuclear genome was published, which I think was in 2005, 2006, which is both the parental and both of the parents' kind of contribution, that was able to show that Neanderthals interbred with modern humans, and that in fact, for all non-African humans, so that's Western Europeans, East Asians, Aboriginals, Native Americans, every non-African human population has somewhere between 1% and 5% Neanderthal contribution.
Wow.
So the interbreeding happened somewhere in the Middle East, probably as humans left Africa, and that left a legacy of the hybridization in our genes.
Yeah, and does that include interbreeding with tis and other ones like that?
So there are other species that we know interbred with our ancestors of Homo sapiens. So the Denisovans were a kind of fairly unknown population that lived in Asia. We don't have any good skeletons of them, but we've got a few bones. They're known almost entirely from their genome, which has been sequenced. They've left a contribution of around 5 to 8% in populations of Asian humans. So people from Papua New Guinea, from the Torres Islands, from Australia.
Yeah.
So there are multiple hybridization events in our own lineage that have left signatures in our genes. There are some signals that the same thing happened with Neanderthals and other extinct species that they would have met as well. So it makes the picture more complex. It's kind of moved from complete placement story to one of hybridization and placement, which is, I think, more interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I was just wondering as well, could they be seen as separate species if they were able to interbreed, or would they be classed as subspecies?
I mean, it depends who you ask. One of the problems with biology is that it doesn't like to conform to any boxes you try and put it in. So certainly according to the biological species concept, which says that species are good if they cannot produce viable offspring together. But even that has has its limits. So I don't know anyone that would argue that a lion and a tiger are the same species.
Yeah.
But they can produce viable offspring, viable fertile offspring. No.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a problem. There's other species concepts that we can use. The phylogenetic species concept, which looks at the sort of genetics of various populations and seeds, whether they form distinct branches when they're analyzed phylogenetically. According to that concept, then you could say that, yeah, humans and Neanderthals are good separate species. So yeah, it depends who you ask.